What's up, everyone? Welcome to Moments with the Marcelins. My name is Jun.
And my name is Stephanie.
And we are the Marcelins. So how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm feeling fantastic.
Good, good.
It's been a great week. How's your week been?
It's been good.
Yeah?
It's been good. I appreciate it. I appreciate the help that I've had this week. And then it's been a lot of good stuff, a lot of planning, a lot of that work stuff.
Okay.
How are you?
That's good. I would say the same thing.
Yeah.
Kind of my work field over the past several weeks been getting a lot of help and things like that. And so teamwork makes the dream work.
That is
so
right.
Excited for that. So what are we talking about today?
Today we're actually talking about the topic of comparison.
Comparison.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes we find ourselves comparing, and this is something that starts from the time we are little children. I remember being in grade school, and so the metrics that I would use to compare is, attire, did I have better grades? Was I able to sit at the cool kids table? Several different things. Yeah. And, as you grow older, it seems to kind of follow you to a degree because what once was just attire, well, when you get older, sometimes it still is that, but now it's degrees or the size of your house or whether or not you're married or
your economic status,
your economic
job
status,
title,
all of these different things. And so there's so many different categories when we compare ourselves. And the truth of the matter is when we find ourselves in the comparison game, it's a never ending cycle.
Yeah.
And it's something that continues and you're always going to find yourself comparing to someone else. And so we want to talk about in this episode the downsides. I mean, I think comparison in general is a downside to you as an individual. And the first thing is that comparison robs us of joy.
Yeah.
It really robs us of joy. I believe it was Theodore Roosevelt that said that comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
If you want to take your joy away from God blessing you with something, compare it to something else.
That's good.
And so, it's a lot of the times, we find ourselves happy momentarily with something that we've been blessed with, but then, the very thing that God has blessed us with, whether it be that job or, that house or, that promotion, we're good with it for a season. And then the moment we look at someone else and we see, what it is that they have, we look at ourselves and what we just got blessed with, what we've been praying for, and we say, man, this is not good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many times where I was like, I know I've dealt with comparison, at least like the struggle with not comparing yourself, a lot. Part of that, I think, even like as you grow up, like sometimes like you're put in a position where you're kind of like at odds with other people. And I think it's like, it's well intentioned because it's like, I want you to be better. So like, look at what they're doing and I need you to excel. But there's the other hand of that's not also taught. That's like, you also have something to bring to the table that's different from the other person. So I know like with women, this happens very often where it's kind of like you're put at odds with other women because it's like, and I remember growing up, it's like, oh, what she wore or what she did or what she said or what, all this kind of stuff. But it's like, it's no longer like, hey, look to see like what you can contribute and how different they are. But it's like even celebrating what you contribute individually,
right,
what I mean, to that as well. And so, it does rob you of joy. And it's so simple. Like you're looking on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever you use. And it's like you immediately compare, your life to someone else's, and because you're not looking at what's in front of you, you're looking at what's to the left and to the right. And so one verse that comes to mind when I always talk about comparison is like when Jesus was on the cross, and it says because of the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. And that joy set before you, regardless of the pain that you're going through right now, is what God has for you. So there's something at the other end of that circumstance or situation that Jesus looked ahead. He didn't look to the sides to see what was going on.
Right.
He knew that there was a purpose as to why he was, living what he was living through. And so he pushed through that pain to receive that joy. You know what I'm saying?
Good.
So I know that for me, like, you know, again, because you're either put at odds with other people, it's part of growing up, because, you know, you want to be better and you want to improve, and I think that that's okay. But to the point where it robs you of your own self and like your own joy, it's a dangerous place to be.
Wow.
Because you'll always be able to find someone else to compare it to. You know? And it's like part of that is like being confident in what you bring yourself, what you bring to the table.
Yeah.
And I know we hear the word confidence is like, you know, confidence in self, but there's also, I remember hearing an episode just a couple weeks ago in regards to like the confidence, not just in self, but in God. And like that in my weakness, he is strong. So therefore there's a part that I'm still lacking that God ultimately fills. And so within that, it's like, there's self-confidence, but there's like Godfidence, which is another term that we've heard before. So I think it's a combination of both within this comparison.
I want to go back to something you said. Even growing up, like for me, I grew up as an only child. My brothers were raised in Haiti, my mom's previous marriage. And so I was my dad's only child. But you know what I saw a lot of the times growing up, now as you're talking, I'm remembering, I had some neighbors that you have those people that you're so close with, y'all are cousins, you know, everyone has a friend that's a cousin.
Like
I have so
aunt,
many, I have like 30 friends that are cousins. But anyways, like I remember, and as a child, because when we're talking about comparison, like, and as you were sharing that, something that kind of plays in my mind is, what role do parents have to play in the comparison even of their own children? Because with my cousin, I would go and hang out, right? And I would get straight A's on my report card. But for him, academia came it was a little more challenging for him. And so he excelled in sports, but when it came to academics, not so much. And I remember, even as a child at 5 years old, his mom comparing him to me. Like, why can't you be like June and be good in school and get all these good grades? And like, I remember just being there and I was just so uncomfortable. I couldn't explain it, but like inside of me, I'm just like, I don't want this. This is not the type of like accolades that I want, like, or compliments to put someone down to lift myself up. So, you know, even from the time we're children, you know, it's the comparison game. And, you know, we don't have children yet, but like that's something that, you know, as parents, we got to be mindful of. Like all your children are different. And so you don't treat every child the same.
No.
You treat everyone fairly, but you don't treat everyone the same, you know, and that just kind of something that just kind of played back in my mind. Something else is that, you know, growing up playing sports, naturally you compete. Naturally you compete.
Very true.
You know, we don't play to just, you know, for participation. This is a competitor coming out of me now. We play to win the game. And so like,
he's the one that's like, you're not going to give an award for everyone for participation. Like, there needs to be a winner and a loser.
Thumb war, best of 7, chess, checkers, basketball, football, you name it, I'm competing. The other day I was playing with some kids foosball, and man, this kid kicked my butt. Like, and I was like getting mad. Like, luckily I had the mask to kind of hide it, but I was like, I'm gonna beat you. And he beat me 2 out of 3 times. I'm like, you got it. But like, even from the time that we are children, you know, these expectations are placed on us. And I think without even realizing it, even from that time, we're comparing ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree. The second thing that I think that also comparison does is that comparison is unfair. The reason that it's unfair is because at least I've been guilty of it, but you compare like the lowest part of your life or the most broken part of your life to someone else's highlight and like perfection, again, quotation, or perceived perfection.
Yeah.
So you're not going to like compare it fairly. You know what I mean? You're going to compare it to like what you know is like the deepest part of yourself and like the perceived perfection of someone else. So it's always unfair. So you're even shortchanging yourself in what you ultimately are comparing, but you're taking it as truth, you know? So again, you do this all the time. Like, I was having a conversation with someone a couple of weeks ago. We're talking about comparison too. And I was like, you know, everything that you see on social media has been cut, edited, altered, color changed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's been a background of music even edited and added, you know what I mean, to give you a certain feel that when you look off that screen for 2 seconds, your life doesn't even have the same soundtrack. So then it's kind of like whether the soundtrack of your life is like the issues that you're going through, or you know what I mean, what you feel like you haven't accomplished yet, or you know, whatever those internal whatever that internal critic is, that's the soundtrack of your life. But you're looking at this for a second, and it's just an unfair comparison. So it's not even at the same level. You know,
that's so good, because it's like you said, like when we're looking at people's highlight reels and what we presume to be everything about that individual, and we're thinking the worst of ourselves, and this is a killer. And I think this is where, when we think about comparison, I think this is like at the core, you know, of it. And it's really understanding that person, to get where they got to, you don't know what they had to grind to get there. You know, like
Absolutely.
people want the success story, people want the platforms, but they don't want the grind. They don't want to work it out. And so, you know, it's important to understand that each and every one of us are on our own journey, and we shouldn't compare our highlight, our you know, behind the scenes with someone else's highlight reel. And so comparison also leads you to believe that you're either superior or inferior to the person you're comparing yourself to. I'll say that again. Comparison leads you to believe that you're either superior or inferior to the person that you're comparing yourself to. This is so good, because whether or not we want to admit it, in our mind sometimes when we look at someone, either in the profession that we're in or something that we're aspiring to do, we look at them and we say to ourselves, oh, I do it better. You know, like if you like be real with yourself. You know, I do that better, or man, like, wow, that's amazing. Like, I got so much work that I need to do, right? And so when you compare yourself, you're either going to look at someone as inferior or superior, you know? And so you got to be careful, because everyone is on their own journey. And so something that I like to believe, and I like to think of, that humility is not thinking less of yourself. Humility is thinking of yourself less. I'll repeat that again. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, but humility is thinking of yourself less. I think we got to get to a point where we got to stop being so self-centered and making it all about me. But we should celebrate when a brother is winning. We should celebrate when a sister is winning. Like, I get true joy when I see people that I know, whether we have a close relationship or not, winning. I see someone with a house. Yo, congratulations. Awesome. That's a milestone. Someone gets their master's, congratulations, or a car, or you know, they have a child. Like, why do I do that? Because it's like we want to celebrate people. You want to celebrate people. You don't want to live with resentment or bitterness or anything like that. And so we should really encourage each other and lift each other up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to tie into what you're saying, one of the things that I've also seen in regards to that is, like, sometimes you don't know whether there's the fine line between, like, being inspired by somebody and then comparing yourself to somebody.
That's so good.
So, like, sometimes inspiration, you see it all the time. Like, you're like, yo, like, I was like this inspo, or like this inspiration from someone that someone did something, either creatively or academically or whatever the case may be. But sometimes I think it's important to define that line for yourself as to when is it crossing from inspiration to comparison. Because that inspiration is great, right? You know what I mean? Like, maybe you got some fresh ideas, tweak it and kind of make it your own, give it your own personal touch, because you're different. You're going to bring something new to that. But where does that internally then transition from inspiration to comparison, you know? And I think those are certain things that, you know, are good things to kind of think through yourself. And I know I've been guilty about it myself. It's just kind of like, oh, wow, like, I'm inspired to all this stuff that this person is doing. That's amazing. But then at the same time, then I'm like, you know, again, looking at the fractured parts of my life, and it's no longer inspiration. I then start criticizing myself over what I have not done because of my age, because of where I'm at, because of my status, because of whatever the case may be. So I think that is also something when it comes to that superior and inferior, that you may be inspired by somebody, but be careful and mindful, like when that crosses over.
Yeah. I was going to put you on the hot seat and ask you, but you pretty much answered my question, because I was going to ask you, like, so Kobe, hello. So I was going to ask you, how do you define that? How do you define whether or not you're inspired, or, you know, you are comparing yourself? And you pretty much answered it. You said when you start criticizing yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's that fine line where you're like, you know what, like, okay, I'm at a point now where I'm inspired. This is good. Like, I think it's good that we open up ourselves to someone who's doing it better than we are, you know, and we get that exposure, because, you know, nothing's new under the sun. And so we all can learn from each other. But at the same time, like you stated, like when we start critiquing ourselves and like, okay, I'm not there yet, and things like that, that's when you got to kind of draw back and be like, okay, this is kind of getting to that comparison.
Correct. Yeah. So just something I've like observed myself personally, and so I thought it would be beneficial. The next thing as to why comparison is not all well is because you are unique you're too unique to compare. Yeah. So let me remind you, if you have not been reminded in a while, God formed you and knew you before you were ever born.
That's good.
And your purpose and your plan was destined before you ever stepped foot into time and earth and any of those things. And so with that, it's important for you to know that yourself, because then, again, you're shortchanging yourself from, you know, whatever else you're comparing yourself to, because you're discounting the talents, the gifts, the abilities, the creativity, the insight, the calling, all with that comparison that you're doing, you know, so.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because even identical twins don't have the same fingerprint.
That's right.
So that just shows you how unique you are.
Yes.
And every time we talk about this topic right now about being uniquely made and fearfully and wonderfully made, like, I cannot help but just kind of get passionate about it, because it was like throughout all the billions of people that have walked the face of this earth, God knows me by name. He knows the very hair on my head is counted. His thoughts towards you and I, you know, if we were to count them, they would outnumber the grains of sand on this earth. Right. And so you are uniquely made. There cannot be another you. Yes. And so you need to remember that no one can be better at being you than you. Yes. And you're not a carbon copy, but no, you are an original. And so keep that in mind, that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Amen. The next thing is that comparison robs us of time. Comparison robs us of time. Now, as we were kind of preparing this, I did some research, and we each get 86,400 seconds in a day. Okay. That's a lot of seconds in a day, right? Like, using even 1 second to compare yourself or your accomplishments to everyone is 1 second too many. Yeah. It's 1 second too many. Like, it robs us. Like, when we spend so much time focusing on or what everyone else is doing and you know, beating ourselves up because we're not yet at that level. Yeah. And which is crazy. Like, even like, it's so much that I've had to unlearn. Like, just growing up, quote unquote, this American dream, and that by the age of 18, you're supposed to have it all figured out and know where you want to go to a university, know all of these things. Like, I get the preparation aspect, don't get me wrong, but you're telling me an 18-year-old, I'm looking back now, I'm like, at an 18-year-old, they're supposed to have life figured out. But yet, they're not even legal to drink. That's just a whole nother conversation. Like, that just shows you but they can go to war. Don't get me started. I can, like, it's just, it's crazy. Like, it's just a lot of things that just contradictory towards one another. And I'm just like, at 18 years old, you're still figuring it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I'm in my early 30s and I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah, there's certain things that you're still figuring out.
When God lays the blueprint, or when God shows us where he wants to take us, it's like page by page. He doesn't show us the whole book. Right. I think 2 reasons. One, we'd be terrified and we'd say, God, peace out. I'm done. I think the second reason is that I think we would start feeling ourselves a little bit. We'd have this superior complex where it's just like, oh, I'm the man, or I'm the woman. Like, look what God is going to take me. No, God is like, I'm going to show you, I'm going to reveal little to you, little by little, enough but not too much.
Yeah.
And so God
That's
is just
good.
right. But when we spend time comparing ourselves to people and wondering why it is that we haven't achieved that level, we're wasting time.
Yeah.
We're wasting time doing that. Like, and so we have to sometimes just stay in our lane and do what it is that we need to do. Save more time like that.
Absolutely. That's so good. The next one is that comparison is a never-ending cycle, right? So you're always going to have someone else to compare something to, something else to compare it to. And so again, it's just a never-ending cycle because that will always show there's a gap of unfulfillment within yourself. Like, if you're not satisfied with who you are and what God has given you, there's always going to be something more. Not necessarily that, God may not allow you to have or to whatever, but that is not a guarantee. And that's, again, according to his will. So if I am not satisfied and believe that God is enough for me in this area now, with who I am and what I have, then it becomes a challenge because I'm going to always try to compare and find someone else and something else to compare my life with. So I can also have that,
Yeah, absolutely. The next thing is that comparison, we have nothing to gain but everything to lose. Nothing to gain but everything to lose. And what I mean by that is that when we find ourselves comparing, like what do you get out of that? What do you get out of critiquing yourself and questioning yourself on why you're not there yet?
Yeah.
Nothing positive. You're only going to get shame, doubt, resentment, bitterness, jealousy, envy, anxiety. And so there's nothing good to gain from that. Like, you get so caught up in what everyone else is doing that you lose your identity. You get caught up in what everyone else is doing that you lose your purpose and that pride and that dignity, that drive and that passion that God has given you. And so we can't get so caught up in what other people are doing, because when we do so, we're losing out on a lot. We're losing out on the joy of the present. We're so worried about tomorrow, and not that I'm not saying that we don't prepare and things like that, because I'm a firm believer that we prepare, but tomorrow has enough problems and worries of its own. And so focus on the present right now, live in the moment, celebrate each milestone, celebrate the process and trust the process, and remember that the message is not in the destination, rather it is in the journey. And so focus on where you are at now. Is are you where you probably want to be? Probably not, but celebrate the achievements that you make and the milestones, and don't compare it to someone else, because you are walking and you are running your own race.
Yeah, absolutely. And God's going to bless what he's called you to do. He's not going to bless what you are trying to copy someone else's purpose on. So
That's
I think
good.
it's just important to remind yourself in that as well, because you lose that, right? You can lose out of the blessings that are in your own journey, because you're trying to, find and try to be like someone else.
Absolutely.
The next one I think is that comparison puts focus on the wrong person. Because you're again focused on what else is going on, whoever else has this, whoever else is kind of in the picture that you're comparing yourself with, and it completely you forget about yourself. Not in the fact that you're criticizing yourself, but the fact that there's only certain things that you can control. That again, because you're focused on what you're comparing yourself to, you can forget. So you are in control of how you feel, of how you act, and how you want and what you think. And so these are the areas that you can only control. And so when you compare yourself to someone else, you feel like there's a level of control that you can have in your life that again it's out of your, you can't control anybody else.
Right.
And so it loses the focus of self.
Yeah. Focusing on someone else is not gonna help you to where God is calling you to do. So I think you pretty much summed that up. The next thing is that comparison results in resentment. Comparison results in resentment. I remember a book that I read several years ago by Andy Stanley talking about enemies of the heart. And so it talks about 4 enemies, and one particular enemy of the heart, it talks about jealousy. It talks about jealousy, and jealousy is basically telling God owes me. And so it's not necessarily that you're upset with the individual for the blessing that God has placed over their lives. It's that you're upset that God, or what you perceive that God skipped over you and blessed them. And so we're all for championing each other, you know, when everything is going good with us.
Yes.
But if things are not necessarily going good with us and someone in close proximity is getting blessed, then we have an issue with it. And so I'll celebrate you so long as you're at my level or below. But the moment, you know, it's perceived that you're going to another level, I have an issue with it. And so this is a very dangerous place to be in. And it's important to understand that, you know, you need to celebrate people and their achievements and recognize that. Yeah. Recognize whenever you start feeling funny in your heart when someone is celebrating. It's so interesting sometimes. And I just have to bring this up that sometimes that like people that you'll get support from are people who don't even know you. Most sometimes in whatever field that you're in or whatever you're doing, whether you're pursuing something entrepreneur or creative or whatever it is, like sometimes like people who never even have a relationship with you, you know, you find the most support in that. That's the reality of it sometimes. I'm not saying this is the case for everyone, but sometimes you'll probably get to that place where it seems like the people you never would have expected to support you are the ones supporting you the most. You. And I want to let you know that it is not a reflection of you, but that individual and what they got going on. And so if you're not dealing with those internal wounds and those areas in your life, then how can you be happy for someone else? You know, and so I've had to learn in my walk that, you know, I got to live for God. I can't live to please everyone. And nor should I be less of myself in order to be accepted by you. I shouldn't be less of myself to, to be accepted by you. And I think, and I'm a man, obviously, but I think a lot of the times, like, successful women find themselves in this position where they kind of got to dumb down their successes and their achievements because their significant other is insecure about himself, because society says that, hey, a man should be in the lead of all of this. A man should make more money. And it's like, nah, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be like that at all. And if you're a woman that's viewing this right now, I want to encourage you to, you know, celebrate. Don't tone down your success, your level of achievement, because society says you're supposed to. And this was not in the notes, but I just feel led to tell you that you be confident in who God called you to be. You're not second class, but you know, you are equal. You are equal, and God has a calling and a plan over your life. And so walk in that, and walk in that confident.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I don't know what else to add, but you said it all.
Okay. The last thing is that comparison is a disservice to God and to ourselves.
Absolutely. So, we've kind of been talking about, you know, just like when you compare, you know, yourself to someone else, and, you know, you have that internal critic that begins to, you know, tell you of the list of things that you don't have that the other person seems to have. That list is then, honestly, that internal dialogue with God is like, God, you didn't give me these things. So therefore you missed out or you did something wrong. And so it's a conversation that, you know, just kind of like, God, you messed up on me. And you telling God that he messed up on you, he's going to look back as like, were you even there when I formed you? You know what I mean? So
have that Job conversation.
And at the end of the day, you know, when you do, you know, when you have that list of like, okay, I don't have all of these things. I don't have all of that. It's just like you're so focused on like what this other person seems to have and not focused on like discovering this within yourself and how you can bring these same things possibly, but just in a different way.
Yeah.
And maybe in an innovative way, and something that hasn't been created yet. But you're so focused on like, it has to be like this, and I don't have this. So God, like, you messed up. But rather it's like, going back to like that inspiration and comparison, is like, wow, I'm inspired by that. God, how can you use me and my own talents and abilities to bring something like that, but maybe different, because I am different, to the table?
Yeah.
And then have other people benefit from that as well,
Yeah.
And so, again, it's a disservice to God because you're telling him where he lacked, and then a disservice to yourself because you're not allowing yourself to, you're not doing that internal work to discover that within yourself in just a different way.
Yeah.
Or even at all. Like, I'm not an artist. So I'm not going to compare myself to something that I know I can't do. I wasn't gifted in that.
Yeah.
And so part of that is like knowing what you bring to the table,
Yeah.
And that what you have in your hands is enough.
Yeah. As you're saying that, the parable of the 10 talents kind of comes to mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, God the Father is just giving out these talents to each worker, and to some he gave more than others. And so the one who had the one talent, instead of using it, what did he do? He hid it. And so when his boss comes back, okay, everyone else is multiplied, and
Pretty much, yeah.
But you with the one, and he gives this excuse, right? He gives this excuse, and it's like, listen, it doesn't matter if you had 50 talents or just one, whatever God, because, to whom much is given, much is required, right?
Yeah.
And so when you have just what you perceive as just one thing, make that one thing good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sharpen that gift. Develop that thing and study it, and find people who have similar gifts and pick their brain and things like that. Don't be that individual with the talent and you hide it because you don't see it as glamorizing as the other gifts or talents.
Right.
Because what God gave you is what God gave you.
Yeah.
So develop that and use it for his glory.
Absolutely.
And don't compare yourself.
Yeah. And I think, just adding to what you were talking about, the talents, like, God's multiplication formula is different than ours. See, we can't multiply by 0, but God can. So I want to remind you that regardless if it's just one talent that you have, if it's in the right hands, regardless of what you see around you, it can be multiplied.
Absolutely.
And so when you even tie comparison to relationships, and I know you were kind of talking about, you even like, relational dynamics that sometimes can be stressful, or there can be some tension in regards to that. I think that's just important to also keep in mind, because these things sometimes, we've kind of just been talking about like maybe externally, but maybe within your own household, like these things can be going on, and maybe you don't know that yourself, and because of how you've been raised, or the expectations that others have put on you in your relationships and gender roles and everything like that, this can be also stealing your joy. This can also be robbing from your relationship. This can also be a disservice to each member of their relationship, because again, I'm comparing myself to your gifts and your talents and your abilities, knowing that mine are a little bit different, and that's okay. And how can we both teach each other to the best of our ability to be able to be at the same place if possible, and then lead from that. So I know we also talked about that a couple of episodes ago, and then as you're navigating through these emotions, think about the care cycle. You know what I mean? Kind of practice that yourself,
which, if you haven't heard, is in our previous episodes,
which we'll link right here.
Yeah, absolutely. That was really a great conversation.
Absolutely. Let us know. Do you still deal with comparison? Do you feel like this is something that is really kind of just like pushed and pressed, on each of either you guys in a relationship, or just still with other people? How have you been able to navigate, the comparison game today? And
so be inspired, but understand that when you start critiquing yourself, that's when you fall into the comparison game.
Yes.
And so don't do that. Don't look at yourself as superior or inferior. You're uniquely and wonderfully made.
Yeah.
And so thank you again for tuning in. Thank you for rocking with us. We just knocked out episode 4.
Yes.
of Moments with Marston's podcast. Listen, we want to hear from you. So if you have any questions having to do with any of the topics that we've been discussing, or just any random questions, we want to create a segment where we can answer your questions at the end of the pod and just kind of hear from you all. Yeah. And so subscribe, share with a friend, leave a review. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you for the love. Love on someone. Y'all be easy out there. Take care. God bless, and much love. Peace.